So this is going to be recording. So if you don't want to be recorded, then you have to do. But this is going to be a recording session. So Joe, do you want to go ahead and introduce and start things off?
Hold on, man. Let's hit the record button first. Yeah, sorry.
I already have the.
All right.
The record,
All right, sorry.
The record button has been hit.
All right, so you ready? So this is kind of like the Wizard of Oz, and Eddie is the guy behind the curtain. Is that right? He's got all the buttons, and so he can mute people or he can record. Is that right, Eddie? We'll start calling you the Wizard of Oz. How's that? All right.
I think today it's me.
Yes, Janine's the wizard.
Janine's okay. All right. That's fair. I see a couple more people joining. Okay, good. All right. So first, let me just say thanks to everyone who's joined the call and others who will join, I hope, for anything and everything that you've done to help not only this society, but our profession, the student chapter part of it. I mean, there's no shortage of work that needs to be done out there that's associated with the things that we do in this society. So I just want to say thanks up first. That's probably the most important thing that I can say. You know, the second thing that I thought would be helpful is just to share a couple of thoughts with you on some things that you probably haven't heard about. I mean, there's no reason for me to get up here and start talking about things that you already know, because that's a waste of your time. So the first thing I'd tell you is I've got the utmost respect for anyone who volunteers to be a part of an organization like this. So when I say thanks, I'm thanking you not just for what you've done, but for the time that you give and the investment of your own energy and intellect and experience that then helps either the profession grow, helps the society grow, or helps our nation achieve what we're after. And from a society perspective, helps us achieve our strategic plan, because that plan is what drives everything that we do. So let me just share with you something that is just unfolding as we speak. All right. So back in February, we launched kind of a two-phase effort to begin taking a hard look at SAME membership. So in the big picture, as we call it, the membership review. We are a membership organization, but we haven't spent much time thinking about, talking about, or doing things that either help or would contribute to our members' appreciation of the value that they're getting from this organization. That just seems to be all over the map, if I can just put it that way. All right. So there were two phases. The first phase, which took us up until June of this year, was, and you'll hear more about this and you're going to read more about it over the next 18 months or so, but we have completely, and the board of direction has already approved, basically completely restructuring our membership categories and completely restructuring our dues. Fundamentally, what's at the heart of all that is this. Many of our members don't even see themselves as members. That sounds kind of crazy, but it's true. So I'm not going to give you the details of that because you're going to read more about it. But in essence, the driving factor was we want every member to be a committed, vested member in the society and feel like they're an individual member. So you'll see some changes that we shared, by the way, with the Post Leaders Workshop last week. And all the changes were, well received. One of the biggest changes is something called the SREP. In other words, if a company buys a membership in a certain post, they get 6 free memberships. All that goes away, right? So individuals would become individual members of SAME, not part-time members only because their company's a member. That's probably one of the biggest changes, all right? The second phase, though, which is relevant to your discussion, the second phase of the member review, which we're just now launching, is really all about the following. And I'm going to plant the seed for you all. This is not the first time that you've had this series of meetings. If you take a look at the meetings we've had at Post Leaders Workshop or last year, the first question that we've put on the table to the board of direction is this. Okay, we've had RVPs, COI chairs, doing assessments every year at this time of the year in terms of what progress have we made toward our strategic plan. And then we've asked those people to put their assessments together and bring it to the board meeting in November. And the November board meeting, the fall board meeting, is always about what progress have we made. Well, the fundamental question that we've put on the table to start this second phase of our member review is, what have we done with the information that we've collected in the last 3 years of doing these assessments? And most people will look at you and say, well, probably not much. Okay, well, I'm just going to throw the question to you. I don't have the answer. You can answer it. So what have we done with the information and the questions or the solutions that this group has come up with over the last couple of years in these kind of meetings? So as you go through the next 3 days and taking a look at, who are the members, what about chapter operations, and how do we get student members to want to become, full-time, long-time members? As you take on those questions, I would also encourage you to ask the question, what did we come up with last year for solutions, and what have we done about it, and where do we have examples of where it's working and where it's not working, and are we focused properly? So here's the other piece of this member review. So member engagement is what has emerged from our look at all this data over the last 3 years. That the biggest challenge that the leadership has agreed is the biggest challenge we have is, how do we get members to be more engaged? Okay, there are 2 challenges that we're going to get the board to take a hard look at, and these relate directly to student chapter operations. The first challenge we're going to have a hard look at is post-level leadership. I'm sure most of you probably realize that it's a little less than 40% of our post-level board members, about almost 40% of them hold 2 or more board positions. What does that say? That says we don't have enough people engaged in the post leadership, right? How about how many posts really take advantage of what they're taught at the post leaders workshop? So we've got all kinds of data we've looked at that says, we've got to think of some really cool, positive, hard-hitting things that we could do that will help reshape post leadership in a more positive way. Now, I will tell you, out of that discussion over probably the next couple of years, I predict that what's going to happen is some of the posts that probably shouldn't even be posts because there aren't many people there at all will probably become field chapters. The latest, by the way, is the Fort Campbell post is no longer a post. It's going to become a field chapter of the Nashville post. That's maybe a better way to approach some of these smaller posts that keep hanging on. Right? So the first piece is post leadership. Without good leadership at the post level, you're not going to have a viable student operation. You're not going to have a viable post to begin with. The second thing we're taking on is, what about post level plans? We changed streamers, we changed the strategic plan. We said that no longer is the national office dictating to posts that you have to try to do everything, do something for every goal. No. What we've told posts with the new strategic plan is, why don't you figure out what's the most important to you locally? And if the most important thing to you locally is doing something for veterans, then just do that. And then build your plan for the next year around that. And by the way, who said you have to have a monthly meeting? I mean, a vast majority of our posts are still stuck in the past where they feel this compelling need to have a post meeting, invite somebody to speak, and you get the picture. But is that really productive? Some of it might be, some of it might not be, but we're going to challenge them to think through that. And what we've said is, you ought to have a viable plan for the next year, and it might be that you do one good event or one good activity each quarter. And by the way, as you do that, we set up a whole new streamer system where we said, why don't you put in the system what you did as you go through the year, instead of trying to pile up a big report at the end of the year. And by the way, I'm the only person in this society that can honestly say, every year I get a stack of paper about 3 feet thick. And Jill would have to print out every single submission from every post on streamers, and I would read every bit of it. That's crazy, all right? But here's the point. Very few posts are actually putting stuff in as they do it. And then we're finding a lot of posts really haven't even thought through what their plans are. They haven't thought through what's most important to them. So here's my point. I thought it'd be important for y'all to understand a bigger picture context of what's about to happen in the society over the next 3 months leading up to the fall board. Because this community of interest is going to have to render its assessment that says, okay, we've taken a hard look at, what's going on and what's not going on, what we've tried or what we've thought of and whatever. And I would ask you all to ask yourself as you go through your 3 sessions, probably the most important question that I ask students. And it's this: I ask students, what is the most important thing to you right now? And I think most of you know that I also teach at George Mason, so I ask my students there at the beginning of the semester, what's the most important thing to you? And without fail, I will tell you, at least 90% of the time or better, students tell me the most important thing to me right now is graduating. So the question is, what are we doing? If that's what's most important to them, what are we doing to help contribute to what they're doing? I mean, I know, we've talked about what Ron Welch does and how he's tied some of the student chapter activity, and not just SAME, but other societies, ASCE and others, to the senior design project. That's a graduation requirement. That's a great motivation. And when the activities are structured in a way that help them achieve what they're after, they're going to want to become members. And then the experience will lead to them wanting to be members later on. That's just one thought. So I would challenge you to ask yourselves, okay, what did we say we're going to do last year? What did we do? And how much of it has really helped, okay? And I would also tell you, getting back to volunteer time, that sometimes less is more. Let's not try to do everything. Like we used to do. We used to try to mandate that everybody has to try to do everything. We walked away from that. Quality, not quantity. Let's really think it through. And I think, the last thing I'd say is, as you think through those things and think through what is it that we deliver that students would find of value that we can then resource and put our backs behind. The virtual member is something I'm after. You all probably don't know this, but I just put $1 million in the contracts to redo our whole member management system, to do our whole website and our whole communications system. And a part of that is I've contracted, I want you to think about the virtual student chapter. So I've also contracted to have an SME app. Some people have heard me say this, but it's now being developed, folks. Probably next year sometime, you're going to have an SME app. And what we want COIs, especially the technical COIs, to be able to do is they will then have an app. And if I'm sitting in a meeting and I want to know the answer to a technical question from the Facility Asset Management COI, I click on my SME app, I click on the FAM COI, and here's what we're after. I'd like to see especially technical COI, grow to be about 10,000 strong, to be a virtual network of experts, that SAME becomes known as the portal to expertise, but more importantly, the portal to multidisciplined expertise, and we're the kings of bringing everybody together to collaborate. Imagine a student working a problem and they want to reach out to somebody and have a question about something in the asset management world or something in the environmental world. They click on their SME app, they click on that COI, they post a question, and some fellow from Australia pops up and says, yeah, here's the answer. That would motivate me to be a member. And I'm here to tell you, I don't care if we have a bunch of virtual members who never go to a post meeting, who never go to a national meeting. I think we need to start thinking differently about how future generations and current generations consume what we offer. All right, so I've taken more time than I had planned, but I wanted to give you kind of a big picture context. We're all going to be taking a hard look at the national level with the board this fall at the second phase, which is member engagement. How do we get more members to be engaged? And if we wind up being a society of only 15,000 people, but 50% of them are engaged, that's good. That's even better than what we say we have today. And we're going to take a hard look initially at post leadership and post planning and try to figure out what is it we could do that would encourage more vibrant engagement in those two areas that I think would have direct benefit for what you all are doing in the student chapter. So I'm going to stop there. Lots going on. But thank you again for everything that you give and for the work that you're going to do here in the next couple of days. So with that, back to you, Eddie. Thanks. And God bless every one of you for what you're doing. And be safe. Get your shots if you haven't.
Before you
Thanks.
go, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance to open up our sessions?
Hey, we can do that. Matter of fact, can you see my flag?
Yeah.
Maybe. There it is. All right.
Excellent.
Let's do that. Oh, you got one on the screen too. All right.
We do.
I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thanks. Don't forget, we are a republic, not a democracy. All right. Back to you, Eddie.
Thanks, Joe. I think it goes back to Anne.
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks.
Marilyn, unless there's anything you wanted to add before I get started?
I do actually. So, yeah, just real quick though, I promise. Again, thank you all for joining. Joe, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I just want to remind everybody that this is a forum. The intent of the forum is to be, of today's event, to be interactive. So if you have questions, since we don't have like a raised hand icon on this this platform, feel free to put those questions in the chat and we'll be sure to address those questions. Again, this is supposed to be an interactive forum, so we want to hear from you. Let's see here. I think that's it. Anne, go for it.
All right. So again, thank you to everyone for joining in today. We appreciate your attendance. For those that don't know me, I'm Anne McMillan. I'm the chair of the College Outreach COI. So we thank you for being here today and being part of today's discussion and our following 2 days of sessions that you've seen the invitations for. So each day has a focus, but like we said, the main focus of it is to have a discussion with you all and learn from you, and hopefully we can share some information with you as well. But hopefully this is a two-way street today where we both get to learn some new things and get to a better understanding of what the College Outreach COI can do and what our awesome student chapters and student members are doing and how we can make all that work together better. So just a couple of things before we get started. As the chair of the COI, I always want to encourage those folks that are here that if you are interested in volunteering or becoming more involved in what we do as the College Outreach COI, please let me know. We're always happy to get more folks involved. We have tons of projects and tons of things to do. So if you have a little bit of time or more time, we have something that you can help us with, I promise. And as well, for those of you on the webinar today that are student members or student chapters and maybe aren't actually part of the COI itself, if you go into your member profile, you can add the College Outreach COI. We recommend you do that. You'll get more information about what the College Outreach COI is doing and more information just from SAME in general. So we recommend adding that COI to your profile. I think there's usually a list of all the COIs and you can just click on which ones you're interested in being a part of. So it'll give you the information for our monthly COI-wide meetings. Those are another forum where if you have questions during the year, we want to give you that opportunity to discuss those with us and reach out for help. We're here to help you guys with what you need. So I just wanted to put that out there. As well, we'll have the slides and the recordings and any other information that we talk about today and through the next 2 days. That'll be on the website. That'll be under the student webpage, correct? Yes, okay, cool. And I'm sure we'll send up a follow-up email after the sessions are done as to where those are all located. But just a heads up, so you don't have to be scribbling down or taking screenshots. Everything will be available after. All right, so we're gonna get started. So I'm Anne McMillan. Some guest speakers we have today, Ron Welsh, who is a longtime member of our COI and a wealth of knowledge in all things related to student members and student chapters. And we also have Joe Kessler, who won the Student Leadership Medal this year. and John Waleski. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, and I'm sorry if I did not. And he is the Bliss Medal winner for this year. So we thought we'd get some of the folks that have had success in student chapters and student membership be a part of our discussion today. So those will be our key highlights. But again, anyone, if you have a question, put it in the chat. And as we're discussing the topics as we go through them, please feel free to share your experiences, things that have worked, things that have not worked. We really want to hear from you and learn as much as we can. So, as we said, objectives to discuss student engagement and note best practices, and again, report back to our membership about what's working, what's not, and how we can all help each other succeed and do better. And as Joe was talking about the SAME work strategic plan, there are multiple goals that are part of that strategic plan. And the one that usually most relates to the college outreach COI is enriching the STEM pipeline. College outreach is part of that STEM pipeline. SAME has efforts throughout that whole spectrum, starting with K through 12. Then with the camps, college outreach COI, and then into young membership and enlisted and regular members, professional members. So we're part of that pathway, and we would like to improve where we can, how we help out in that pathway and that strategic goal for SAME. So just if anyone's interested, sort of where we fit in the big picture of SAME, that's our main goal that we support. And some of you may have seen these from last year. These are our numbers as of August 2019. This time it gives you a snapshot of our student membership and who's a part of our group and who we focus on helping and supporting. So we have college level students, we have high school students, and of those students, we have about half that are associated with a post. So for those that are maybe newer to SAME, we have student chapters at certain post-secondary schools, and those are associated with a SAME post. So I'm from the Boston Post, so I'll use myself as an example. The Boston Post has a student chapter. Our student chapter is UMass Amherst. And so that post is, that student chapter is associated with the Boston Post. And then for the other number, we have about 600 student members that are not part of a post or a student chapter. And of all of those student members, they're part of over 500 different schools, universities, academics, institutions of various kinds. So it's a pretty wide variety of people that we have as part of our COI, which is awesome.
Hey, Anne, can I just say a few things about this,
Sure.
that one slide?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we hope to do now that Janine's on board is get to the next level of data of what's within these numbers. I think right now the biggest categories have been college and high school, but we want to be able to start segmenting between previous campers, scholarship recipients. We have a few posts that are now running their scholarships through our member portal. So the more data we can be providing or for us to understand as to how they came to us will then help us better to provide many communication strategies for each of these students, because they'll all have some different level of awareness of who we are as an organization and interaction with us. So we definitely want to capitalize on those that either have gotten some money from us or really cool experience through the camp program, or are, have a pretty active chapter. And like Joe was saying, start zeroing in on where we've got pockets of really active students that we can engage versus trying to see this 2,000 number as the totality of folks that we need to accommodate at the moment. But that's something we'll be working on this coming year.
Thanks, Eddie. Did anyone have any questions about what we've gone over so far before we keep going? I don't want to keep chatting if there's any questions or comments so far. All right, we'll keep going. Okay, So I think a lot of us, we talk about sort of why SAME. I think we all have had our elevator pitch or 30-second spiel of what SAME is, what we think it can, what it does for us, and what it can be for other people. We sort of started our short list right here, and I would be interested to hear what other folks have to have as their benefits of student membership, and why, when you get asked that question, why should I be a student member? What are the answers that folks can give and do give? Some of the categories we have are student chapters. So if student members are at a school where there is a student chapter, that's definitely a benefit, I think. Many of the opportunities that you can have and things that you can be a part of. We also have our virtual student chapter for those that are not at an institution where there is a student chapter. Internships, that's something that we've been working on and trying to grow and have more interest in, is internships on the SAME website. It's a part of the job portal, I believe. And it's something we're trying to get more interest in, having our sustaining members be a part of posting their internships that students can look at and apply for. And as Eddie was talking about earlier, scholarships. A lot of posts give out scholarships. Some are, they're done at the post level. There's no national scholarships, but each post does them differently. And as Eddie was saying, some are using the national platform to streamline their process of how they go through their scholarship applications and give out their scholarships. So that's something that has been ongoing for the past couple years, I would say. We also have mentoring. Some posts do mentoring with their student members and their student chapters and posts. And we also have education and training, as a lot of you, I think, have been to one of these. We have JETC, the FM workshop, and SBC. Those are 3 big national events every year. And one of the awesome benefits of being a student member is that registration for those events is actually free. So you can register for those events free of charge. It doesn't include travel, but for the ones that have been virtual for the past year or so, it's been free to attend things like JETC and the Small Business Conference. The communities of interest, as Joe was talking about earlier, the communities of interest are a great resource for the many different aspects and top end subject matter experts that are part of SAME. You have folks that do a wide variety of things, and those communities of interest capture a good deal of them. And so if you're interested in a specific thing, you have these pretty large communities of folks that also share that interest, and you can find out anything you probably need to know in those. And also TME magazine. So I think that is the little icon over here. I don't know if you can actually see my mouse or not, but TME is the publication of SAME, and there's always great information, I think, in those about what's going on in SAME around the country and the world. So those are sort of, oh, sorry, yes, Marilyn?
I have some questions, so hoping you can answer them.
We can try.
Okay. For scholarships, I know that you mentioned about that each post has scholarships, and some of them can be viewed at the main website. But what is the best way for a student to navigate to identify a scholarship of their location?
That is a good question. So each post does them very differently as far as from what I've seen so far. So I think the first would be to look on the national website to see if they are using the portal, but probably just to ask each post to get connected and ask somebody at the post that they are near. Thanks, Eddie, for posting that in the chat. So that is the national page where scholarships are listed.
There are instructions. Yeah, there are instructions on this page. Sorry, and
awesome.
For anybody that wants to investigate how to find one at the post, it takes you over to the Find a Post page, and basically tells you got to go post by post and see what they offer. Yeah. this is why ideally more posts will start joining us in our experiment to run their scholarships through our portal. They would still manage the process, but we would be able to have one location where any interested student could jump right into the post level site. But it's, that's a work in progress.
And then I have another question, sorry.
That's what we're here for.
For education and training, let's say a student member is interested in joining to participate in JETSI, but they're not affiliated with a post. How do they get the support to attend a JETSI event?
That is a good question. And I think that's something that as a COI, we're hoping to try to maybe get some stipends in the future. Right now, that's not something that we have available, but potentially that's something we could do in the future. Right now, if they're a student member, I think it would be to reach out to their local post is always a good idea. You never know. It's great to be involved with whatever post you're near, I think, even if you're part of a school that does not have a post or a student chapter. Does anyone else have suggestions for how they have they've handled the situation in the past? I'll open that up to everyone on the webinar.
I think there might be. Go ahead.
Oh, this is Tiffany. Yeah, hi guys. I know as a post here in Panama City, we've definitely entertained sending students both to the camps and to the conferences that were not like local, like our county. We've gone outside of our county, but we've also had ones that were several hours away from us. So, it doesn't hurt to ask, and you can ask multiple posts that are around you. I mean, sometimes they just have, they have money that they want to support, and nobody's asking for this, to use that money. So it's not a bad thing to ask some of the students or some of the posts, and it may not be necessarily where you live. It might be where your college is or your post-secondary schooling. There might be a post near that as well. So look in both locations.
Well, and there might be guidance here for us, to go to schools in general. I think we've already started talking about what is the collegiate footprint around the Denver area that we could reach out to, where some of these students might not be members yet, but if we invite them to come to JETC, that's an opportunity for us to capture those that are within commuting distance. At some point, there could be a resource that we send out, and maybe we work with our strategic partners like Drexel to see what that message looks like, but where we put out a guidance to university engineering programs that might have funds at the club level or the school level to send students. There's always an option where we end up getting a grant down the road, or somebody wants to sponsor somebody, but I think at the lowest hanging fruit, it would be geographic, proximity to an event and College of Engineering school program support.
Well, Eddie, and this is Buddy, in Denver, you've got Colorado School of Mines, which used to have a very strong program there that may be very interested. It's a 30-minute drive over to the conference.
Yeah, I think we'll want to start putting a list together of what the schools are in that area, even potentially down to the high school level. I'm assuming they'd have a pretty decent STEM footprint, with Colorado School of Mines being a local, school option. But I think that would help us at least give a heads up that we're going to be in the area, and then start pushing all the opportunities that we can come up with as far as a student experience at the conference.
Are we also doing that for in Atlanta, small business?
Yes, we are. And we've also, Eddie and I have met with the San Antonio Post as well, since they are very close to FM Workshop, and that one is repeatedly in that area, to hopefully be able to do some things with the San Antonio Post and those surrounding schools as well for future FM workshops.
Yeah, I think SBC might be a smaller footprint just because topically the conference itself might not be as might not seem as relevant, but because of Georgia Tech and the fact that they host our camp, you know, at the very minimum, we could go out to Georgia Tech and, you know, give a little recruitment spiel and invite them to meet us at the conference in some capacity.
Were there any other questions in the chat, Marilyn?
Not seeing any other questions.
Well, I did want to highlight the mentoring related to this education and training, because at this past JTC, we did have a coordinated engagement plan for students, and we ended up with 33 students attending the conference, including making some young professionals available for mentoring them, you know, through the experience. I think that kind of formula will really enhance once we're in person and getting students in front of some of our professional members. So I'm excited to see where JETSI, you know, what opportunities we have at JETSI to expand that.
And even something as informal and mentoring as something we've tried to do at the Boston Post is to have our housing young member and student member events, and just have them available to chat and reach out and do some, the past year it's been online, but we did some virtual meetups, and just have that opportunity to ask those questions and put some faces to names and just have a name that they can reach out to if they come across something they want to ask about in the future. I think it's nice just to have those people that you know, and when you're a student that you can reach out to and ask, like, hey, how do I do this? Or what's the best way to go about asking a company that I'm interested in if they have opportunities and there's nothing listed on their website, things like that. So I think just having those people that you've put a face to a name and feel comfortable asking those questions to try to move your career forward and that sort of thing.
Yeah, before we move on from this, I think there is a challenge here for us as we start contemplating student members beyond undergraduates. Where is our space for both finding and inviting the non-traditional student, and then how do we host them at some of these events? You know, training for them may be a different set of skills or interests than what a four-year college student may be looking for our conferences. So I still think there's more as we consider the breadth of student members, more on the training side.
And my hope too is this new the new membership software will kind of allow us to do a little bit more with that, where right now you're kind of either in one category or another, and I feel like you where we have some non-traditional students who may not be student members or are in school but maybe not full-time, so they wouldn't be student members, but we still want to reach those non-traditional students. If there's hopefully a way to do that with the new database, having sort of multiple fields where we might be able to have that information available.
Cool.
Maybe, hopefully.
There's gonna be a lot of magic in that new database, I think.
I hope so. All right. Is there anything else on this before we move on? And just one more thing on the communities of interest. Again, if you go into your profile, that's something you can add. So if there's any of the communities of interest that you're interested in, like environmental, small business, can't think of any others off the top of my head, you can just click those and you'll get the communications from those COIs.
And this is Jim Worth. I'm going to tag something else here. I don't know if it's maybe what Eddie was referring to, just in different words. One of the things that I'm trying to encourage my Nashville Post to look at is not only the four-year colleges, but also Tennessee has an extremely powerful two-year program in the vocational technical area. And I'm trying to develop that. And I see a lot of synergistic opportunity there if we're also going to expand our membership efforts among sustaining members to include some of those construction type companies, not just the architects and the engineers, but the people that are actually doing the work. So we've got a lot of HVAC companies here in Middle Tennessee, and certainly plenty of other construction companies that I think we can get some great synergy going between them as sustaining members and students and student chapters at the two-year technical schools.
Yes, that is definitely something we've been talking about in the COI, and that is definitely something that we would love to facilitate and work on. So if that's something you'd like to work on us with, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring that back to what Joe was saying about, we may not be able to answer that for the entire society, but Jim, if you have opportunity there, I would like to have us figure out how to answer it for you, turn it into a model, and then we, tell everybody, hey, it's working here. Here's how it works. Replicate it, because we really will need to then work with the posts that are in your position of wanting to do that and wanting to make those connections.
Okay, I'm on board.
Sweet.
Excellent. What other major problems can we solve today? All right. Does anyone have anything else before we move on?
I think it was Betty that said about the two-year institution. That's a great segue to your next slide.
It is. So one of the things as a COI that we've been talking about is who are our SAME student members. As Eddie was talking about, we kind of have some limited data right now that we're trying to fine tune as far as what makes up our membership of student members. But we're also an interesting COI where we have multiple communities that we work with and try to bring together. So we have our student members, we have our student chapters, we have faculty advisors, we have student chapter mentors. So we have a whole bunch of communities that we're usually trying to work with and put together. But obviously the big portion of that is our student members and the diverse background that they have. So this is sort of the start of a brainstorming list of sort of who are our SAME members. And again, it kind of goes into that spiel of, well, why would I want to be an SAME student member if someone's asking you? And so these are some of the things that I'm sure all had as part of our discussion, and maybe hopefully we can expand upon today and see what folks are seeing at their student chapters or out of their student members. So like we were talking about post-secondary institutions. So we're trying to see if we have folks from trade schools, are they from community colleges, universities, military academies, other options that aren't listed there. Are our SAME student members, are they interested in the AEC industry? I think as we've seen probably in the past, a majority of our student members are STEM degrees, but are there places where that's not true? Again, not limited to American students. That's always been the case. Not limited to military or government commitments. So you don't have to be part of working with companies that work with the DoD or government agencies. Or SME student members are looking for leadership opportunities. I think that's pretty common through most of our student membership. They like challenges and are team players. And so some of these are the goals that we've put into our student competition, where we have a student competition of teams where students can come together and put together a project and enter that into our competition. That was something that we went through the first cycle of over the past year. And I think it was an awesome group of students that participated. The projects that were entered were very diverse and very interesting. And it was great to see them working together and all the different challenges that they took on and provided solutions to. So I guess I'm going to open it back up to everybody else. So if you are a student member, are any of these actually apply to you, or do you think there's other not categories, but other descriptors you think that SAME student members are or should be. I'm going to open it back up to everybody else.
And this is Ron. One of the things that I've seen is that too often, if you look at IEEE or a ASME student chapter meeting, they tend to be very pure. They're talking about large electrical projects or manufacturing, types of machinery, airplane industry, while you've got students that really do want to be part of the AEC industry, but that's not a lot of coverage of that in the mechanical, electrical, say, programs, how to lay out a building or whatever. So I think that one of the things that SAME can do is that's one thing they can preach to the students that are other than civil, because civil and construction tend to fall neatly into the AEC, is these are the type of, and have those type of speakers come in who can talk about first the AEC industry and how those other disciplines are so important to those industries. But also, I think the second one is to bring in a company, say like a Boeing, even though it's an airplane, but have them really focus in on civil, mechanical, electrical, chemical, industrial, all the different disciplines to show how it takes them all to become a very strong team to produce whatever product it is. You don't want them to focus in on any one specific discipline when it's for SAME, if you will. And so that we continue to follow that thread that Joe talks about of us being an integrator of all the disciplines together, and with that nugget of AEC industry being one of our biggest areas that our members, professional members, are part of. Just a thought.
Yes, I agree. And I think a lot of us know from working in the industry after a while is that you're most likely going to work with other people when you're doing a project. You're going to have subcontractors, subject matter experts that you work with. And I think some of the projects that we've seen from our student chapters and our student members is having the collaboration skills. The topics might change, the projects might change, but if you have the ability to collaborate, I think that just expands your horizons exponentially. And just having those skills. You can use those skills no matter what the project is if you know how to work with the people involved. And I'm also going to put in our small plug for our virtual student chapter. And I think that's been a highlight of some of our virtual student chapter webinars, is sort of the different paths you can take in AEC and the sort of outside the normal realm of careers that folks have taken. I think one of the cool ones that we had recently was someone that is an engineer and designs theme parks. Like, I think that's pretty cool, or you get to design roller coasters.
What I'd love to see in this area, and I'm going to see if Miwa can say a few words. She's a high school student out of Guam that had expressed interest in starting a high school student chapter, and felt there was some interest there, but wasn't able to go that far yet. But I was hoping to hear from the students on how they see themselves within SAME. But also, I think with this section, what we could really use is more a variety of student profiles that we can highlight, examples of the different types of students that are engaged with us already. Miwa being one, finding someone from the Citadel or West Point, or finding somebody from a trade school, one of your community college students, James. If we could start creating profiles for who these people are, I think it would help people to grasp the diversity of student membership, not just, the typical four-year undergrad. As an idea. Are there any students on that want to just say a few words here? Oh, too many of them on the spot.
You can share later if you want. It doesn't have to be right now.
Sure.
But we're always interested in knowing who our student members are, because obviously the more we know about who you are, the more we can try to help and streamline our work plan and our goals to what will actually help you guys. I'm also going to throw out the question. I think a lot of the time we do focus again on AEC and STEM, but I know we have some schools where our student chapters or student members are folks that are in nowhere near related to those fields. And I guess I'd be interested to know how that came about. How did you get those students involved? How did they find you, or how did you find them? Those sort of things. If anybody has a story they'd like to share.
Hey, Ann, I'd be curious to hear about the high school students. You said Miwi is a high school student. I'd be curious to hear about what got them interested in SAME at the high school level, and why they decided to join. Because maybe learning and understanding the how and the why at the high school level could help us reach other high schools in other areas. Again, I'm not trying to put anyone on the spot.
So Miwa, I think we're asking you. So if you're actually able to speak up, or even if you want to respond to some stuff in chat, we'd love to hear a little bit about what some of your thoughts are.
Oh, hello. Thank you so much for including me. My dad is a civil engineer, and he is part of SAME on Guam. And so that really, or for a really long time, that really caught my interest. And I researched more into what UOG, or our local university's student chapter did, and I really wanted to take part in it, but as a high school student, where myself and other high school students would be able to meet on our off time, and maybe influence younger students, because I think it's really important, or I thought that it was really important to start at a young age. And so that's why I wanted to become a high school member, but I was unable to do so because I think it was very difficult to start with, and there was such a small group of people who were interested in it. And I think if there was more, or if SAME was distributed more as like a high school student chapter, I think that would have a lot of members interested.
So do you think that a place for us to start is with like families, where there's already somebody, a parent who's a member of SAME, and trying to get them involved in helping to start a high school chapter?
Yes, I believe so as well. I think there are students who are interested in engineering, a lot of the time just science classes. So I think maybe informing teachers would, and then the teachers would inform their students about an SAME high school chapter potentially. And I think students would want to pursue that, but as well as family related people.
I'm thinking this could be an intersection with our camps COI as well.
Yeah, I will say, this is Christina Juddy with the Charleston Post. We've actually had a couple high school students attend some of our meetings this summer because they've been out of school. And they've actually been able to provide a lot of really good content. So, and I was kind of thinking about that. I was like, how could we incorporate like the STEM committee with the college outreach one? So,
Christina, how did they get involved? How do they know about your events during the summer?
Their parents are members.
Okay. And I think that goes with my daughter too. My daughter, she's now a student at Worcester Polytech Institute, but she was a student member. She was a member. I want to say student member. She was a young member since she was a freshman, and it's the same thing. It's because I was involved, and she just thought it was cool. So she wanted to be a part of the. She wanted to be a part of the group.
So one of the things that might help in this area in engaging more of the younger grades, so that by the time they're in high school, they're either already engaging with a post or prepared to think about what schools they're going to and whether there's a student chapter there. I'm hoping that as part of next year's budget, we are going to have money for us to attend the National Science Teachers Association National Conference. And that's typically where, in my past organizations, we've had an opportunity to really promote all the resources directly to teachers, especially STEM teachers, where we could offer, services or resources, not just the scholarships, but, access to post outreach. So I think when we start strategizing for that, I was just looking at the calendar to see when the 2022 conference is, but they still just have 21s on there. But I think there was going to be a need for us and the STEM COI to do a little coordinating about what we want to present about ourselves to science teachers. Oh, it looks like it's going to be in Houston next year, buddy. 2022, end of March, beginning of April.
One thing I'll say at the post level too, I know some of the things that we've done in the past are doing sort of outreach activities where some of our members will go speak at schools during their like STEM days or career days, and just sort of talk about sort of how we got into whatever fields we are in. And the kids ask us questions and we talk about SAME and usually try to promote the camps while we're there as well and show them that there are opportunities available if they're interested in these types of careers and activities. So just something to throw out there. All right. Did we have any other questions or discussion points we wanted to do before we move on to our next slide? Okay, cool. So just something that we've talked about. What's the criteria for student membership? So I think that's always been something that we talk about. Let's get student members and all this stuff. So just so everyone's on the same page about what that actually is. It's anyone attending high school or post-secondary institution. The list is there, and then 25 years of age or younger. And so one thing that sometimes gets a little confusing is SAME has sort of these different categories of membership. So student members are basically up to 25, and then after that you become a young professional, and that is 26 to 39, I believe. And then beyond that, there are different categories for enlisted civilians. And as Joe was talking about at the beginning, some of those, the categories themselves aren't changing as far as the membership, but sort of the structure of how the fees work will be changing over the next 18 months or so. But for our segment of the membership criteria, I don't think those will be changing too much. So student members versus young professional. And so you could still be a young professional, but be a student as well, but you would just be in the young professional category if you're going to school, like say part-time or something, or are over 25. So I just wanted to do a quick clarification on that, as it's sort of been a question that comes up a lot when we're talking about that. And you can still participate in the College Outreach COI and student and all of our webinars and the virtual student chapter and things like that, even if you are a young professional. Janine or Eddie, did you want to add anything in our membership discussion?
I think there's been a little bit of confusion about people who might be undergraduate students but over age 25, and yes, you are considered a young professional. So there is a, you will need to pay some dues, and I'm sorry, it's eluding me at the moment what the dues are for people in that particular category, but I also know that there are some posts who take those those undergraduates who are older, people who might have served in the military and are enrolled after their terms of service, and have assisted them with their dues when they are in that undergraduate but older category.
Yeah, I think it's that returning student that right now is not really being factored in. Or if they are, they're seeing it as if they've already been a professional on some level. If they return to being a student, then they would still be part of that subset of the professional category versus an actual student member, unless they were under 25. So I think right now this is the parameters that we have to work with, and it still gives us a lot. It's not everybody, but I think this is enough for us to strategize at the moment.
Yeah, and I think Tiffany had mentioned that her post, it's eluding me which post she's part of, but they have sponsored some students who are in the young professional category. So they've sponsored their dues for the year while they are while they are in school. So that's something I think we wanted to put out there as a potential best practice for posts if they have folks who are members that are in school that would be students but would be a young member in the category of the membership categories.
Yeah, I guess
that was confusing.
There's a question. I guess I had the question you're talking. I don't know if it's specific to this, but let's say if a student is a non-traditional student who's going for their second career. For myself, for example, I got my degree in the early 2000s, long after I was 25, but it was because it was my second career. Would I be considered a student member?
No.
No.
I'm starting fresh, get my bachelor's degree.
No.
No, you would have to be under 25 under the current rules that we've been told. But again, if you were at your post and your post wanted to sponsor that for you, if you were in a different membership category, that's something that could happen. Like Tiffany had said, they sponsor folks that are students that don't qualify as a student member.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I mean, I feel like until we get more post-reporting scholarship recipients to our members, I mean, we're probably losing more potential students just with the under 25 crowd right now. As a bigger target for us to be trying to engage. All of these other examples of returning students, I think, can still be addressed, but right now they would need to be addressed at the post level through a stipend to get them in as a young professional, or young professional or whatever member category.
Other category. And just a best practice that I think that, again, sorry, I'm from the Boston Post, so I'm sharing all of my stuff from the Boston Post, but as part of our scholarship process, we do interviews. And so when the students, we've been doing them virtually, but when we used to do them in person, we would chat. We would have some of the young professionals be there to meet with them and hang out with them, so they weren't like sitting alone in a hallway while they're waiting for their interview, and chat with them about SAME, let them know what we do as young members and what SAME does in general. And then we would encourage them, let them know about student membership and that it was free, and allow them to sign up to be a student member. So we gave them all that information while they were already there, and have been definitely had an increase in our student membership based on that. And just always constantly reminding people at their companies, sort of one time of the year when you tend to have interns, remind them that they can be student members if they're there for their summer internship, get them signed up for SAME while they're there, and maybe point them out to whatever post if their school isn't local, maybe connect them with the post where either their school or where they live is. Just having that interaction and connecting with the students, and providing them that information. So it's not just them going to the website and not knowing what they're looking for. If they kind of have an idea like, oh, okay, I know there's a post near me, I can go find that. And giving them some of the tools to be able to become a student member and be involved. Because we want to try to take down as many barriers as possible between them figuring out what a student member is and actually signing up. So if it's easier, then I think most of us agree they're more likely to actually sign up. I don't know if anyone else has any other best practices as far as how they've encouraged students that they know to become student members.
I still like San Antonio's formula with the big fair they do where they get the families all to come in, you know, especially if you've got a good local representation. You're not just recruiting the students, you're recruiting the families into the university community.
Does anyone else have any other best practices that they've seen work at their post or their student chapter or elsewhere? One thing I will note is now we do have a student section on the website, so hopefully that will make it easier as well for students to find how to become a member and all the information related to student membership. I know for a long time it was kind of hidden on the website, and now it kind of has its own little home where everything's in one place for students to kind of find out what SAME is, what it has, how to sign up, what we offer, what's coming up as far as events and webinars, that sort of thing. All right, cool. Does anyone have any other questions or topics they want to cover under membership right now? Okay, cool. So one thing, I think we'll talk more about this tomorrow, but we did want to just bring up our virtual student chapter. It kind of is the bridge between our student members and our student chapters, and sort of we have student members who either can't or aren't in a location where they could be a part of a student chapter. So a couple of years ago, the virtual student chapter was formed. And this has sort of been a way to provide more benefits to our student members that, again, aren't able to be part of a student chapter or are part of a student chapter, but to provide more benefits to them as well. So the virtual student chapter is there to support all of our student members. And initially, it started out as something for our student membership, and now when COVID came about, we definitely, it became more of a benefit for our student chapters as well. It became something that they could use as a tool to meet or to view the webinars when they couldn't gather together, or something that they could be a part of. So again, I think we're going to talk more about this tomorrow, but I just wanted to bring that up today as something that is available to our student members, and something that I think is really cool. I know we've had, Ron, I think you said some of your student chapter has used it as a supplement to some of their meetings, that they've used the webinars to have as a topic for some of their meetings.
That's correct. Whenever they had a speaker cancel out, or they were having difficulty finding a speaker, and especially, as you said, last year, we were face-to-face all year. However, getting people on campus was not so easy with COVID. And so we did dial into that a few times to use that as an avenue for, and it is actually at a different level sometimes as well, because SME National can pull in, say, Kiewit, and bring in some large presidents and VPs to talk in large sense about multiple subdisciplines of engineering. And you may, at a small chapter, may not have that type of a organization close to you to be able to draw and have that kind of a rich discussion.
And again, I think we've used the virtual student chapter to provide some breadth of subject matter topics that maybe, again, the local poster, your student chapter might have a hard time getting someone to speak about, or maybe you want to cover it, but it's only a shorter segment and you want to do something else after. So it could be like a part of your discussion, and maybe supplement what else you guys are doing in the student chapter meetings. And I think, again, I think Ron's going to talk a little bit about more of this tomorrow, but we're always looking for topics for our virtual student chapter. So if you have something that you think would be an interesting virtual student chapter topic, please let us know. Andra Clapsaddle is our virtual student chapter coordinator chair. And she is the one that puts together the webinars, finds speakers with her team for the virtual student chapter. And they're always looking for new ideas or speakers that you've seen elsewhere, maybe you think that would be a good fit for SAME and our student members. Those are always welcome suggestions to know what our student membership actually wants to hear about.
And I would think, especially if you got the topic, great, but the speaker is more important, to have that person that you know would do a great job and bring that to Andrea's attention.
Mm-hmm. And as another resource, all of the virtual student chapter webinars are on the SAME website. So there is sort of a library of past virtual student chapter webinars that are available for our student members and our student chapters to use and watch on demand whenever they're needed. So that was also a goal of the virtual student chapters, to sort of start this library of information that's available for our student members. Eddie and Janine, I don't know if there's anything you want to add on the virtual student chapter front, since Andra couldn't be here.
No, well, only that, as we start zeroing in on the communities within our student member category of activity, this is going to be another one that I think will could be a focus group for us, even to where, I'd love to see, as Janine and I work on our budget for next year, if we can get some student leaders to actually, fill those leadership roles, sponsoring them all to come to JTC as a convening point, or some other meeting that might be more convenient, but someplace where that would be the carrot for them, is they would still get an opportunity to meet in person as a group, and see if that helps us, recruit some student leaders.
Excellent. All right. So again, I think we'll cover the virtual student chapter again tomorrow as well. So there'll be more on that tomorrow. All right. So I think at this point, we just wanted to open it up for discussion and kind of hear what you guys have to say. Are there, we have our topics that we try to pick every year for this forum, and we're always looking for new ideas and to hear from you guys as far as what are the things that are working in your student chapters or your student members. What issues are you having that maybe discussing with the group might be able to problem solve?
Hey, Anne, this is Marilyn. I have a question.
Sure.
Let's say I'm recruiting to trying to garnish a student chapter, and a student says, well, I'm already involved with Society of Women Engineers, or I'm already involved with whatever society. Why should I join SAME? What would you tell that person?
Well, I think I want to hear what our other members have to say about this as well, because I'm sure it comes up for our student chapter mentors and our faculty advisors and our student members as well. I think I would probably refer to the discussion points that we were talking about on the first few slides about collaboration, SAME being an integrator, and all the great things that sort of you can do with those skills. That we're not just a one subject matter area group, and focus on the collaboration. I think that's been a key thing that has always served me well, and I think has been a great part of being of SAME. Part of SAME is the diversity of the membership and the diversity of the people that you meet and collaborate with, and then know. For me, that's always been the key points, and I think that works at a member student level as well. The diversity of people, knowing people outside of your faculty, outside of your specific department, and having that collaboration skills and the tools to use those in the future, no matter who you're working with and what you're doing. So I'm going to open that up to see if anybody else has anything else that they would use in their sort of 30-second elevator pitch of why to join SAME.
So this is Tiffany. I'm sorry, I got back on. I had to jump off for a minute, but as far as I'd like to add to that, and I absolutely agree. It's the diversity of the membership, but not only that, but we also have so many opportunities when it comes to leadership and paying for, you know, your certifications and your licensing and that kind of thing. But and then as far as the diversity of the membership goes, like I'm an architect, and so I'm also a part of the architecture AIA part. But when I'm in that group, it's all about whether or not advocacy on the laws that affect us, and that's why we come together. But for SAME, we come together and it's so much a networking thing. Like I have between SAME, like I found all of my jobs in the last decade from being a member of SAME and having and then the people just wanting to work with me because of what I have done as far as leadership on the different boards. You know, when I said I was looking for a job, I very specifically got from several people saying, well, if you're the one looking for it, we'll find a place for you. And there wasn't even an opening, just from the leadership that they saw while I was on the board of the several different posts that I'm on. So very specifically, those type of opportunities. But at the student level, what we like to tell our students who are like, well, we already have a student chapter for, I don't know, name one of the civil engineering groups. And I'm like, well, why don't you guys just take the same group and like we'll add SAME to it and we'll give you guys a bigger budget and then you have more opportunities for all of this. And they're like, oh, okay. So like just adding more opportunities and having more on your resume is always a good thing.
Yes, those are awesome points.
And I was going to add that what Tiffany said was exactly correct, and what you said, diversity. But I think more importantly is that if you're out there, as Joe Sherdell said, they're looking for jobs. Everybody wants to complete their degree and get a job. And so the more opportunities they have to interact with the different societies, they just might find the job that, say, you might go to a SAME or an ASME or an IEEE or an ASCE, and you may not be any one of those. SWE, because again, just like Tiffany said, when you're talking architect or if you're talking ASCE, it's very focused on ASCE projects. But by going to the other societies, you get a breadth of types of projects, and you just might find the one where they're looking for your discipline to be part of that type of project or that type of profession. And I think that's I agree also with the networking, and you see a lot more different disciplines of engineering in SAME than you do as you try to go to ASCE meetings. You don't see as many different types of engineers other than civils or construction engineers.
Yes, that's very true. Did you want to add something, Eddie?
I did, but I wanted to wait till other posts because I guess I have a different take on this, and it comes back to what Joe was emphasizing about smaller, more active. That it really shouldn't be a hard sell because if we had, say, a student chapter that was 6 individual students and all they did is submit a competition entry every year, that to me is an engaged part of our student membership. I think some of this may just be re-envisioning what we're offering as far as services. In some cases, if the university's program is designed so that they're all exposed to SAME and everybody going through that engineering program knows who we are and can sign up, that's one thing. But you know, for other students, it may just be those that understand the value of coming to our conference or feeling like they want access to professional development. You know, I want to figure out where we have different formulas working so that it isn't just, you know, this chapter has 50 students versus this chapter has 30 students. One is better than the other. You know, I would start with what kind of impact do we want to make, and then what students are on board to do that kind of impact.
Yeah, and one other thing I'd also say is the connections for at least the student chapters with the posts as well, and for the student members to be connected with posts. I feel like the local resources of those are something that we sometimes miss with our student chapters. We focus kind of on the school aspect, but there's also the whole world of the post and all the folks in that posts that are available as mentors or other posts do leader development, like you said, and just the opportunities that are available for the students through their local posts or wherever they end up in the country. I think that's something we've kind of talked about and probably will on Wednesday in our student to professional transition topic of the resources available to the students beyond just when they're in school and things like that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear if there's a post out there that is serving as the conduit for recruiting new talent for a sustaining member or an agency. You know, even something like the Pathways program, where a number of agencies provide an opportunity for recent college graduates to circumvent government hiring. You know, wherever we could be that conduit, then we become the go-to versus some of the topical societies.
Hey Eddie, I have a question for you. As far as our COI goes, do we have access to who the student chapter president or their professors are? Do we have access to that?
We do have a report that downloads the student officer, but I think it's just the chair, and then the faculty advisor and the student and the faculty mentors, or sorry, the post mentors. The problem is that it's not by student chapter, so we kind of then have to guess. It's just a download of the member information. So then we have to match it up with the different roles, but we are able to pull the mentor list and the faculty advisor list on its own. It's just not evident sometimes who they're matched up with.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I was just wondering if we've ever had a conference call with, like, let's say all the presidents of the student chapters, and if that might be helpful.
Yeah.
To kind of get them together.
We have not. That would be the next step. I think Ron and Mike are both now starting to have regular calls with the faculty advisors and the chapter mentors. And, you know, I was hoping we'd see a lot more of the mentors on this call. But yeah, we haven't done a coordinated outreach to the student leaders of each of the chapters. I think we'll need to do a little work between Janine and I and see how easily we can pull that list based on the status reports we've gotten in the past.
I think that would be a good idea.
It was just a thought, because, you know, we learned so much, like at the post leader workshop, like we learned so much from each other just by like meeting each other. So it was a thought, like maybe pulling them together and giving them an opportunity to talk to each other, get to know each other, that it might be helpful for them to just swap ideas and maybe not necessarily have us involved per se.
Right. Well, we've talked about with Andra and the virtual student chapter coming into the fall with an announcement of upcoming workshops, the competition, that maybe that first newsletter then announces some meeting where we want to bring everybody together by by maybe October, so that they can all get into their year, and we plan a virtual, student conversation. I think that would be useful.
On non-COVID years, did we used to recruit or send the student presidents to the post leader workshop? Was that a thing?
Not for a long time. There used to be a separate student leadership workshop that I believe Ron was a part of for several years, but that hasn't happened. I think the last one since early 2010s, I'll say.
Oh, okay.
Maybe Ron can correct me on the date range, but it's been a while. So it used to
okay,
be.
So
Actually,
it wasn't just a
2015 or 16, yeah. But
Okay.
I think the biggest thing is when Joe Schrodel came in, he said, "Hey, because we were seeing the same students from the same student chapters, and we weren't getting very many advisors to come, and we were having almost no mentors show up to it, and so therefore, it was not really perpetuating all the growth we wanted to. And Joe really wanted to move that to Jetsy, so he stopped it. Then we tried to move it to Jetsy, didn't really get off, and then the next year we were getting closer, and then we had COVID. So it's a work in progress.
Yeah, I think there is space for us to bring back something in person. I feel like we're going to have to show much more organization across all the chapters. Who would come, what their roles would be, in order for us to come up with something like that again. There could be potential to do something like that at FMW next summer, because it's during the summer. We could capture all of the outgoing officers, and we already have a density of institutions in the San Antonio area to potentially contemplate. But we're probably going to need some calls with that community first to see how many would participate before we could commit to something like that.
I guess, well, okay, yeah. So I guess this is a really good discussion as far as what we can do in the future. And honestly, the only way I feel like to get to the post is just to add this as another line item in the streamers, as in like send a student chapter leader to whatever, if it's Jetsy or post leader workshop or FMW, like whatever one we decide. But it's just something that I guess we need to discuss further. But it was a thought. Sorry, didn't mean to go far off.
No, that's exactly what we should be thinking about.
Here, so.
Yeah, let's let Janine and I, as a to-do, see what that list would look like, see how quickly we could pull together a list of all the student leaders that we have recorded. In the places where we don't have information, we'll just substitute the chapter mentor, to either get us that information or to be a placeholder for those chapters. But, and then, we have some things at the college outreach we got to strategize for the next newsletter. When we have some of those things put together, we can, strategize a meeting sometime in the October timeframe for this group.
Hey, Eddie, one thing that we have to strategize is how do we get students to Jetsy? I mean, the real issue is that some universities, that's finals. Other universities, they're on the quarter system, so they're right in the middle of a semester. And then you've got a large number of students are already in their internships. And they have to have, that's where it goes back to what I think Tiffany said, is where you get the post to think about who they can sponsor. Because the idea in the past, the Charleston Post has always sponsored 2 students to go to that student workshop, and they've also sponsored 2 students to go to Jetsy. The problem is finding 2 students who can go, and then better yet, 2 students who are actually your future leaders. And that's what you're truly working on as a junior and a sophomore going to it, to go to the training to grow themselves as leaders in the student chapter, and then have them linked up to be able to have a one of the society or one of your post companies to sponsor them or the post to sponsor them. So there's a lot of moving pieces there just because of the timing of where JETSI is. I think we had more success back in having it when we had early February or late January at the beginning of a semester to get more students to come. But I still think we can do JETSI. We just have to be more proactive and have the post, as Tiffany said, have it more of one of their requirements. And that can be done by having one of the student chapter leaders be a member of the post board. It could even be as a liaison, but a member, so that those conversations are being had.
We've had great success with having our student chapter presidents or leadership come to our board meetings. I mean, obviously it's been virtual, but recently, but it's worked out very well to give them that platform.
Hey, Mike Scarano here. I would just add that, you know, regardless of what the requirements are, if the timing is not convenient to allow attendance, then it doesn't matter. You can set a requirement, but, you know, if it's final exam time or if it's another inopportune time, you know, that's going to just make it all the more difficult. So you can't just set requirements without taking into consideration an appropriate timing for the event. I mean, take our West Point chapter. JETSI is always in you know, in May. Hey, you're not getting West Point cadets, and it's got nothing to do with whether or not they want to be there. It has to do with the schedule of activities at West Point. The only suggestion I would offer is what we're doing right here, is offer a hybrid option. Yes, we want to get people live, and live is a wonderful thing, but there are going to be people who just can't get there live. Give them the alternative, and that could kind of have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, I think realistically for JETSI, we're really talking about two fronts. One, something more inviting for the surrounding community, and then it's seeing who, you know, within those institutions has a calendar that works with our time frame. Yeah. And there might be enough footprint that that's still a good start. But then there's the general guidance to all our posts that, you know, if we're putting the effort of having special orientation for students, you know, some young professionals as mentors, then we should just let all the posts know that we're doing that and put them in a position of sponsoring some of their students, you know, whoever they happen to be, and let them just make that call. We're just opening.
We do that. We always sponsor 2 or 3 to attend. But again, if I say, hey, send 3 cadets, sorry, you can't do it that week. Everybody's busy. That's all I'm trying to say. I totally agree. Posts, to the extent that they can, should sponsor a number of their students. We have done so for years, but for those that, in spite of all that, the timing doesn't work.
And that's why we're hopefully also, oh, sorry, Mike. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. Don't worry.
I'm
the guy who's showing up late.
We've been trying to increase our presence at all of the SAME national events. So not just JETSI, but Small Business Conference and FM Workshop too. Knowing that student schedules are going to be different at every school. So we're not going to get all of our student membership available on the same day. It's just not going to happen. Every school is different. Every student member is different. But our goal, and I think that's something that we've tried to put in all of our work plan goals for the year, is to have a more consistent presence and message and availability at these national events. So if we have students that can't attend in person or virtually, since it is a hybrid, like example for a small business conference, that we have events and we have tools for them that are available. We want to make sure that if they make the effort to attend, that we're there to support them in that effort.
Absolutely.
So as part of that discussion has always been sort of what's the best time of year to do this. And I think the answer, unfortunately, at that there is no good time for all of our student members to do it.
Right.
And so we'll have to eventually just make a decision if we do something in person as to sort of what's the best, what fits the majority.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
I think again, when we have virtual as an option as well, it's been a great tool so far. Like you and Ron have both had your calls with our student chapter mentors and our faculty and the faculty advisors. And both of those have been virtual. And I think those have been great conversations that we've had so far, connecting those groups of people. So using the tools we have, I think is a good point, Mike, that we do have virtual. And so we'll hopefully continue to use that and make that a tool that we can use.
And I know it's a ways away, but I feel like we almost need to get a year ahead of planning if we're going to bring back a student conference. You know, if overlapping it with one of our national events is just not going to ever be a good timing, and we want to come up with our own, you know, we still need to start strategizing something like that now to then find a time of the year, maybe in 2023. And there could be an opportunity with Hewitt and their new STEM center that they're opening up, that, you know, we've been talking to them about doing some big event. So, you know, I think there's going to be some real opportunity in 2023 with them to put together bring back that conference, at least for a one-time convocation.
Great. Did anyone have any other best practices they wanted to share about getting student member to attend conferences or events?
I still think there's an opportunity for training too, to be a carrot. If there's some training that, you know, at least like for the folks that we're going to be engaging locally, you know, there's pointing to the sessions and the expo and stuff like that. But at what point would we be able to provide training on some relevant topic that would really make their attending productive beyond the sessions and the expo?
Mm-hmm. And I think we kind of touched on that too, with the idea of possibly doing a job fair that kind of coincided with some of the national events, or a virtual job fair. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that hopefully we can get some more feedback on from our student members as far as what time of year would be preferable to host something like that, and or if that would be something that they were interested in. Again, I don't know. So we need our student member feedback to figure out how we can best help them. I mean, I think, like we said, getting a job is a very important part of education, and being in school is doing something with that degree. So if any of our student members on board, or our faculty advisors or student chapter mentors kind of have an idea of what would be helpful, that would definitely be something that, even if we don't finish discussing it today, at a future date, that's definitely something that we have on our list of goals as something that might be something that we could do. But we obviously want to do that in a manner that would be actually helpful for our student members. If anyone had any thoughts on job fairs or internships beyond just job boards and online tools.
At the JETC in Tampa 2019, there were some, I want to say virtual, but that's not the right word. We had some little breakout sessions where vendors were doing presentations. Could we encourage some of our vendors, especially at SBC or the FMW, to do some presentations that would be more training related, that would support this idea?
That would definitely be interesting. What kind of topics were you thinking?
I don't have anything in mind at this moment. I'm just thinking a lot of vendors in the construction area, as opposed to the engineers and the design side, the construction vendors, whether it's an equipment operator that may want to tell us about how they're integrating GPS into their equipment. It might be something like a vendor that has a geotextile or a geogrid that they would explain, well, how does this help to stabilize the soil, and what value would it have? And if we're going to get into training, okay, how do you start calculating when you need it or when you need to use different types of it? So I guess we need to go somewhat based on who are the vendors and who are the companies that are participating, and then leverage off of that. What do they have, and what can we tie them in with?
Yeah, I think where we had talked about that, Ann, is we thought when FM Workshop would have been in person last year, we had talked about doing a pre-conference workshop along these lines. So rather than competing with what's going on during the session, it would be identifying one of these topics, recruiting a speaker or a company, that wants to present something, and doing it as a pre-conference event, so that then they, can be part of the regular conference agenda. FMW also was a smaller venue where we knew we were going to be getting some students to attend, so it allows us to kind of have a little bit more of a captured audience. I think JETC would probably be a bigger challenge. Well, let me put it this way. At some point, the call for presentations is going to be put out. So one of the things that we could start doing is submitting presentations around some of these topics with student members as an audience, and just trying to get it as part of the regular program. But it would also help if we had a company that was really interested in connecting to our student members, saying this is something they want to pursue.
That's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, either way, I think we should resurrect our FMW plan, and starting to contemplate for next year's conference, regrouping on the plan we had with all the Texas universities, and setting aside some time for a pre-conference workshop and even a tour, I think is what we had talked about for student members. Using that as our
I think we have
first.
some really good ideas for that.
Yeah, I think it would give us a good venue to do a deeper dive and get more folks on board than trying to, get absorbed into all the moving pieces of JETC.
I think that's a good idea too, because as far as all of the conferences go, that seems like the most ideal time for a student. And especially if you're getting the up and coming new president, it's right before their semester starts.
Yeah, I think that potentially could be because it's July, so a good time frame for any summer convocation, other than job and internship maybe. But we'd build it as professional development, and if we're paying, then who knows?
Well, I feel like if they know far enough ahead of time, like when they take their internship or whatnot, they can just say, hey, I got a thing I have to go to this week, and they can just build into it. I know when I was doing internships in college, I used to do stuff like that too. As long as you plan ahead, they don't tend to mind, especially when they know it's something that's, going to help you, just help you.
Yeah, there's also, you just maybe think about what about going to the companies that already host internships with some sort of module on SAME. I know QIT hosts 600 interns a year. So if we could somehow get on their orientation agenda when they're onboarding these students, could we come up with a SAME 101 for student membership that we could then send out to all the different companies and say, hey, here's what we did with QIT. If you'd like to use it, feel free.
Well, we should also engage people like ACOM and Jacobs, because I'm assuming with the size of company they have to have, you know, a pretty good program going on.
Yeah, Q is the only one I know an exact number because we wrote an article about them. But yeah, I think all of our big sustained member firms would have numbers to contribute. And again, I'm trying to get to the students that would be invested in us right from the beginning. So if the company that is already a member is introducing them to us, you know, I would see those students as being a little bit more savvy about signing up as members.
Great. Did anyone have anything else they wanted to add? Make sure we hear from folks as we start to hit the end of our time. Did anyone have any other topics they wanted to cover, or questions, or comments, concerns?
I have a
Shout
quick
outs
question. This is Bobby Lang from the Omaha Post. I'm actually working on an email to go out to our members. We have 2 posts, one that we're revitalizing and one that is kind of getting off the ground, and then one that's been around. So we have 3 that are post supports. But my email is going to basically say, you know, as your students head off to college, you know, please encourage them to consider joining a student chapter of SAME. We have an event for the UNL chapter this weekend. It's Big Red Welcome, and it's over 300 booths where, you know, there's clubs, there's companies, there's all sorts of people there. So we're going to host a booth and try to gain some member interest there. But part of what I'm asking is if I put in my email, you know, if your student is not attending one of the 3 schools we host or support, there are, you know, chapters across the country to contact. Just make it easier if they contact me or Dave Packard. But is there a list if someone calls me or Dave and says, hey, you know, my student's going to XYZ, and we just reach out to you, Eddie, and, you know, get the contact information for them?
No, if you're yes, in the short term, Janine can help. But on our Find a Post page, there is a tab for student chapters. It lists all the chapters and the post mentor for that chapter. Excellent. So that would probably be the easiest. Is just point them to either that page and have them look through it, or scroll down and find, you know, one that you know is geographically close to them, and highlight the chapter mentor.
Okay, perfect.
And that was one of Eddie's newest
chapter too.
What's that?
I was going to say, and that was one of Eddie's newest things, and that he had been working on for several years, was to get that tab available for the students. So thank you, Eddie.
Sure. And we do have a student chapter landing page as well that then points people back to that page. I think it's same.org. My mouse all of a sudden stopped working.
Now, the other thing you could probably put in your email is also that if you go to a school that doesn't have a chapter, think about starting one, because if they're going, you know, for engineering, like giving them the idea that they're capable of starting one, you know, a lot of the times they just don't even think about it. So
yeah, my only caution is it all starts with a post mentor. The entire process hinges on a post mentor. So
so maybe I should just let people reach out, and then if they have questions, we start that conversation there.
Yeah, I'm just saying if they want to start a new chapter, a post would have to adopt them first as an interested school.
Gotcha.
And the post would be the one that would facilitate the new, because we have been approached by students at schools wanting to start a chapter, and we're not really designed to manage them out of the national office. So until there's a post, they kind of can't go anywhere.
So I have posted both the Find a Post page and also the student chapter page, which has the information. And on the student chapter page, there are things like, the student chapter application and the charter and the guidance manual. So that has some of the basic information about how to get a student chapter started.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I think some of this we'll probably talk about more tomorrow as well, with student chapters. That might be some more information for you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
In the virtual student chapter. Don't forget about the virtual student chapter. If you have students that are attending schools that don't have a student chapter as well, that's another resource available to them.
Oh, that's a very good point. Thank you.
Anybody have anything else or questions or comments? I'll put the contact info for all the COI leadership team is available. It's also on the website as well. If you go to the College Outreach COI page, all of our contact information is there. And I would encourage everybody, if you have questions or looking for resources or just don't quite know what you're looking for or just need some help, please feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to answer phone calls, emails, questions. We're here to help you. And so we want to make sure that we're doing that as much as we can. So when we have feedback from you guys, it makes it easier because we know we're actually on the right track. So please reach out if you need something. And otherwise, I will open up for last comments, alibis, questions, things I forgot to say that other folks need to remind me to tell folks about. Marilyn, did you have anything else that you want to say before we close out today?
No, this is great stuff. Looking forward to hearing about what we have tomorrow and even on the third day. So again, for tomorrow, same thing. The goal is to be interactive. So when you have questions, and I'll remind everybody tomorrow, but when you have questions or have some thoughts, feel free to share that in the chat and we'll be happy to share it amongst the group.
And if you think of anything later, please feel free to send one of us an email and we can definitely get it added to the notes or pass it on for tomorrow's discussion points. So, all right, everybody, thank you very much for attending and participating. We really appreciate all your feedback and questions, and hopefully we answered some of yours in the process. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for your feedback.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it.